welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to be able to do this again, and being able to connect with everybody over the last month was awesome and a privilege on my part and my side. Thank you for engaging with it and moving through with this process about becoming a more mentally fit human being. As we move into this a little bit here today, I'd love to just take a second to sit back, maybe close your eyes, maybe not, whatever you're comfortable with, and feel into your own body what you are experiencing in this moment. We're going to start talking about awareness. And so becoming aware with our own selves, with our own sensations running through our body, with our own thoughts, becoming aware of how we truly feel about things. And then today's topic is actually language. Becoming aware of the words that we use, what we mean by them. Do we really mean what we say? And if anyone has anything that they would like to share about what their last month was like, what they're sitting with and feeling and experiencing now, I'd love to have a couple-minute discussion about what your last month's been like, what it is you're feeling now. And it could be one word, or it could be multiple. And if anybody would like to jump in and share, I'd love to hear it.
I feel like overwhelmed with to-dos. So right now when you say that you want to close our eyes, I did. And the first thing I hear like a pop of the email in my immediate thing was to look what's the email about. Right, and I had to force myself to, and so now I'm thinking, well, what do I have to do to ignore that and right now make this hour about, you know? So it's that multitasking all the time. Right.
Asking someone asking you to close your eyes and not think about things when all you're trying to do is think about things all day long to do more things, right? Exactly. So like, this is going to get me the opposite of what I want here. I'm going to get more behind. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to miss more emails. Right.
Yeah, the word that came to mind for me was hectic, right? Yeah, it's been a very busy month. It's a very busy time of year for so many of us. But there just seems to be a lot going on, both work-wise and home-wise, for me. So it's just, there's a lot of things happening all at once, it feels like.
Hectic, a lot of things happening all at once.
Yep.
That's hard. That's like almost this awareness of like, but which one? Because there's 10 of them. And if I focus on one, I get smacked in the back of the head by another one. So I have to keep moving and keep my, keep moving here. Not being able to attend to one thing, where we're really built to, attend to one thing really deeply. And we're talking about being present here. And, how am I supposed to be present with this one thing when I'm with this one thing, I got 9 other things that I'm trying to think about here at the same time. And we're trying to be more efficient. And I think sometimes it makes us less be able to be with whatever it is that we have in front of us. I think especially in the holidays here with family too, right? It's like, okay, quick, now Christmas is here and we have to have joy and cheer. And so, okay, joy, cheer, is that done now? Okay, great, good. Now time to move back to, we kind of miss some of the points sometimes. Oh, anybody else? Thank you for jumping in.
I was going to relate to family and kids. I feel the need for the kiddos getting off of Christmas or getting out of school for Christmas break, and what are we going to do, and we still need to work, and so it is that hectic moment right now for family and kids and all that.
Right. And I'm almost hearing when you close your eyes, Stacy, and feeling into your own self, it actually reflects back into other people. Like, it's not how I feel, it's how am I doing? How I feel is, am I doing the things that I need to do for the other people in my life to make sure that they're feeling good? And there's a bit of a skip, a jump over me, like there's an invisibility to you in there. So some of your challenge this week might be to sit with you. How do you feel?
That's kind of where I was at with awareness. So like, if I'm in a good spot, how much consideration should I put into how other people are doing, I guess. Does that make any sense?
Say more about that.
How do you work through that?
How do you work through, if I'm in a good spot, should I be concerned, or how much of my energy should I be putting towards other people? That's a great question. I think there's this balance, right? And you hear a lot about like abundance and overflow. And I think it's, if I'm filled up and I'm giving out of like the abundance of joy that I just naturally have that radiates out of me because I want to give, I want to serve, I want to be there, I'm naturally happy in here, and that continues to reflect back into me, then I think that's a mutually beneficial, synergistic, positive relationship, versus if I pull a cup out of me to give to you, that's one less cup that I have in me, and now my meter starts going down and down and down. I think that's some of the balance that we're living in life. And how do I, focus on my own needs? Is that selfish? Maybe is that detrimental to others? And I would say that when the balance is right, and when we moved into that space, that focusing on us actually is to the benefit of other people around us. When I'm fully myself, fully alive, fully engaged, I naturally flow and give back. And I think moving and operating from that space is kind of the ultimate goal and powerful in there.
Okay, thank you.
I'll ask the question again if I know I didn't fully give you an answer. I gave you a picture to move towards. How the logistics and the details of that answer are going to be more particular to your life, and if I have a better specific answer to that, I'll give that to you too.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking about like Dr. Shad's podcast, little thing we had going on earlier this week, talking about surrounding ourselves with the people we hang out with. So if you're around a negative vibe, it can rub off on you, but where's that line of wanting to help those people change their attitude as well?
Yeah, you're asking some great questions there. There is something about where does the desire to help come from? Is the desire to help changing their attitudes so I can be in a more comfortable space because I'm uncomfortable with them being uncomfortable? Is it coming from a desire to give and love them? Then there's also this line of respect for another individual's being's choice. Like, hey, don't, cheer up, be happy. It's like, well, sometimes it's the right thing to be sad about this, right? It's like, no, like cheer up here, have a cookie, have this, whatever it is. And it's like, there's something about respecting an individual's right in there to be whatever it is they want to be, even if that is a miserable grump, right? Maybe they need to be that in that moment, and honoring that. And what does it really mean to help another individual? Can we help another individual? How do we shift, and can we shift the way another person sees, feels, believes about things? And I think we'll talk about that a little bit here in our talk today too. Those are great questions. Thank you. Keep bringing them up. Anything else before we dive in? Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about language and the impacts or subtle impacts of the words that we use in here. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We're going to start, in case you weren't here for the last one, with a quick recap of what we talked about. I'm going to try to do it in 2 to 3 minutes here, give you an idea of what we talked about to catch you back up. Then we're going to dive into our topic of language here today. And we're going to go through a bunch of words, and this will be a great conversation that I'll bring some words up and we can talk about it. What do you think about it? Are these words you use in your language, or are these words you don't use? To me, this isn't a list of, I'm going to tell you to never use these words or always use these words here. But I think more they are words to be aware of. This is a conversation And so please engage with it as much as you would like to. Okay, go ahead, next slide, Paul. So what is mental fitness? Mental fitness is the word that we're using to describe our internal conditioning. We have physical conditioning of like, and that's obvious, of strength and resilience physically, but where does strength and resilience internally come from? And go ahead and go to the next slide. And the question on there is, is this just the way I am? I think the overall message of the last talk was, no, nobody looks at themselves out of shape and just like, I was just born this way. This is just the way I am. But if we have, say, a bad temper, or we're impatient, or we have anxiety, I think there tends to be more of a, no, that's just the way I am. I've just always been this way. And I think the important message from here that I've heard from Mike a lot is that, no, you can change that. If there's a gap between the person you are, or the way that you live your life, and the way that you would most like to live, the person that you imagine the best version of you could possibly be, this is about bridging the gap between where you are now and where you're moving to. The real brief recap is we're a combination of our biology and our experience. So there are some certain traits and genetics that we were born with, and what impacts and shape those, or the reaction that happens with those, is the experiences that we've had in our life, and those combine to create you. And the good news, bad news, is that a lot of these things were learned behaviors, learned ways of being. You know who you are through the reflection of how other people in your life have reacted to. Are you beautiful and people are drawn to you, or are you repulsive and people are repelled to you? You know that through other people's actions, which is essentially the experiences in your life, and what is learned can be unlearned. So you can change and shape that. Are you a person that's strong and resilient, or are you the person that quits and can't move through and do something? We talked about why change is difficult, and because it's okay, like you might have, when I said, the life you want to be, you might have an image of it and be like, okay, great, that's the one I want, that's it. And then you take 2 steps out the door and you walk the opposite direction. And so there's these subconscious patterns that are embedded deep within us that make change difficult, and change is possible at the same time. And I think one of the slides is like, you're not an idiot, because I think a lot of times when we see the disconnect between who we want to be and how we act, or maybe how we want to act with our loved ones or with whatever it is in life, and how we actually do it, and we see this gap and we see like defectiveness or brokenness. And my message in there was, it's not. There's actually reasons that you are this way, and judgment or rejection of ourselves gets in the way of closing that gap and starting to see why that gap exists, and the beauty that's in it can start to illuminate the path across it. If the exhale to inhale, part of why make things difficult is that we have to let go of who we are. And we're really used to being this way. And to be something new, to be a new way of being, we have to let go of our old way of being. And I see it like Tarzan, like swinging from vine to vine. And the next vine is just out of reach, but you can't let go of that old vine. And sometimes you might get a hold of that new vine and move through. And sometimes you have to let go of that, dive out and catch it midair. And that's a scary process. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think I slowed it way down last time and we sat in silence, and I'm asking sometimes to bring up how you feeling, what's going on when we're sitting in these places, because most of the things that we need to change are the things that make us uncomfortable, those places that we don't really like going. And I think I brought in the analogy of like going to the gym, and maybe the person that works on the upper body or lower body or whatever it is, that they like the things that they're good at, and they ignore all the things that they're not so good at. And left to ourselves, that's what we tend to do. And those things that you're not so good at, those are probably the things that make you a little uncomfortable, that you don't want to work on. And so pushing that edge, moving into that discomfort, becoming comfortable in those uncomfortable places, bringing awareness to places that there weren't awareness before, or things that we don't really want to look at and see, is what bridges that gap. Yeah, and it starts with becoming more present, aware of what we actually think, feel, believe, and of others around us. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. Language is a great place to start with this, because we talk about mindfulness, and that's a word that gets thrown around a lot. Like mindfulness, what does that even mean? I kind of hate that word because it's a massive buzzword and it means 1,000 things and then it ends up meaning nothing. But when I'm talking about it, I think it's really becoming aware of how we really feel, aware of our impacts on other people, aware of why it is that we do the things that we do. I say this, but then I do that. And becoming aware of what is actually going on in there. And essentially, I'm saying, become aware of all the things that you're not aware of. You're like, well, how am I supposed to become aware of things that I'm not aware of? Because obviously I'm not aware of it. That's why I'm here, right? And so I think language is a beautiful place to start, because our internal feelings, our internal thoughts, like, they're slippery. They shift, they can come and go at a moment's notice, and it's so easy to just shift and move out of it. But the words that we speak, like, they are speaking into existence. They are concrete, they are tangible, they can be recorded, right? And then we can look at it like, oh wow, look at the words that I'm using. Is the words that I'm using really reflective of what I'm actually feeling? So I think it's in this journey of learning to live intentionally, I think language is a great place to start. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. Who am I? I'm a guide to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Great. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I think I talked about my background last time. I'll give the 10-second. I've got a really wide variety of experiences in my life. Some really extreme, grounded, kind of human suffering stuff. I worked in firefighting and search and rescue and in the Army Special Forces and martial artist, and do a whole bunch of stuff in like this really grounded, practical world. And then yet also I'm talking about touchy-feely and feelings and mindfulness, awareness, and all that sort of stuff, which is also really powerful and important. And actually what it came from was realizing and training lots of people to go do extraordinary things. The things that held them back were not the physical things. The things that held them back were actually the internal things. And to really train somebody to live an extraordinary life, we actually focused on that. And when we focused on that, all the other pieces just sort of started falling into place. And that's a bit of how I have moved in this world. I've been working in this space for probably 12 years now. And so when I talk about some of these concepts, I want you to know that I came from the space of like meditation, like, oh, that sounds awful. Sit there and do 10 minutes of nothing. Like, I can't think of anything worse imaginable to do. Like, literally, actually, I can think of anything would be better than doing nothing for 10 minutes. Why would I want to do nothing, right? So just know that I come from that background and have found such tremendous power, beauty, joy, depth in those quiet spaces that we are going to start exploring, that we have begun the process of exploring in this space. Okay, that's enough about me. Let's move on. And we're available for one-on-one sessions. The overall intent of these topics, these podcast talks that we're doing here, is to give some high-level overview of different topics in this space, to give you some tools to play with, and to give you some concepts to understand. And the one-on-one sessions is about diving into what is specifically important to you. What are the patterns that are going on in your life that you wish to make changes in? And so if you hear any of this and you're intrigued, someone had a question earlier of like, oh, I gave you the general, I gave you the goalpost, but it didn't tell you specifically how. That's what these one-on-ones are about. Okay, let's dive into you. What's going on in your life? So those are available. LNH is sponsoring 5, I think, for each employee from there. All right, let's move on. I think we're ready to dive in.
Just did the one-on-one with Travis this morning. I think it's my 3rd or 4th one, and best one we've ever had. So I'd highly recommend them. They're amazing.
Great.
And Mike, you are. Let's stress again the whole element that you are paying for these. And this is not just a good idea, but this is a benefit of being part of LNH. Want to say a few words on that?
Absolutely. I think that as I started working down this, I quickly figured out that the mental fitness was probably the most valuable thing I've ever worked on, the easiest gain that I've ever had. And I wanted that for everybody that I love, which includes all of LNH. And I was happy that the board and the other owners allowed me to give 5 of those sessions. And mostly happy because I found Travis and how amazing he is with all the multifaceted people. So yeah, it's just part of our culture and our core values, and I hope everybody takes advantage of it and uses it. And you'll get a whole nother level one-on-one with Travis, because he can work on exactly what you want to work on, whatever it is. That one-on-one, this is valuable, but that's really valuable, and we are happy to bring it to you.
Fantastic. All right, so Travis now is going to give us just a quick overview of what we're looking at. That will not only be an overview of what we're looking at for all of us, but will serve as the introduction for those of us who missed the recording of this, and should also be a good introduction to the podcast series. So it's definitely a multiple point issue. You're here for the recording of all this. It's like being, watching Jimmy Fallon do the Tonight Show, but with less ugly Christmas sweaters. So Travis, let's do the overview of what's ahead.
Okay, if you want to take me, great. So we're going to talk about language today. So we're going to start out talking about why language is important, why it's something worth paying attention to. And then we're going to go through a series of, be aware of. Do you really mean what you say? Is there a better way to say this? I think it will be the most beneficial to everyone to have it be a conversation and a dialogue. And so I'll go through each segment, category by category. We'll have a discussion, and then we'll wrap it up with some general talking about language after that. So we are going to be diving into language today. Language is an important topic that's worth examining and discussing, because it impacts us profoundly and deeply in ways that we don't always have awareness of. It's both impactful on the external, and the words we speak end up impacting us as well. And so being mindful of our speech and the words and language we're using is a powerful first step on this journey to mindfulness. Today's content will be going through a series of words of different categories of words to be aware of. Is this what you really mean when you say, or what do you really mean when you say, and is there a better way to say it? So we'll go through those. We'll have a discussion on each one, and we'll have fun poking at each other, because I'm sure somebody's favorite words might be up there. And so you can challenge me, say, I think that's a great word and it should be used all the time. Awesome. Our quote on the bottom is great. But if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. And I want to bring this in because it goes both ways. Language is both a reflection of our internal state that we're feeling, of what we actually are feeling. And sometimes we are using words carelessly that then end up reflecting back, changing the way we feel about something. And that goes both within us and within others. Okay, great. We can go ahead and go next. All right, so the first category we're going to dive into is speaking to the future that you want to create. And I'm labeling this as avoiding the words in the negative. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. Our first 3 words that I'll let you sit on and think about for a minute. Can't, not, and try. And I'll leave it out there. If anybody has got an opinion and wants to throw it, what do we think about the word can't? Any thoughts on it?
For me, when I say I can't, I feel like that's the end of the road. Like, okay, give up, because I can't do it anyways.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. It stops your brain for looking for more solutions. All right. It's not that I can't do this yet. I can't do this right now. I haven't yet gained the skill to do it. It's I can't, and therefore it's done. So it stops your brain for looking for solutions, and instead use the words, I'm still working on, I haven't yet found solution to this. Using those words leaves space in your brain to consider the possibility that there may be a solution, or you may be able to do it at some other point. I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't do this physical thing, right? Those are all great examples that we use that then become fixed. Okay, what do you think about the next one? Not. Anybody have thoughts on that one? Your brain doesn't hear. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, when I see not, I'm also looking at the right of telling folks what you want them to do or what you need their help with, and not what not to do. Right. I'm using not quite a lot, but it's almost like when you're telling your child or somebody to stop doing X, and really you don't want them to do X, whatever that is. So you shouldn't even say it. You should tell them what you'd rather have them do instead.
Yes. Beautiful. You got it. I hear this a lot when I talked about like people's life and what they want for their life. Most of the time, I hear more what they don't want. I don't want to be so anxious. I don't want to have such a bad temper. I don't want to, like, okay. It's hard not to do something. Like you put something in front of your kids and say, don't do that, right?
Right.
Like they're just gonna sit there and be like, I wanted, oh hey, cool, there's these things over there, go check that out. Like then suddenly they move towards that. So our brain doesn't, it's like the whole don't think about pink elephants thing, right? It's hard to not do something, but it's easy to be or do something else instead. Great, thank you. All right, what about the next one? Try,
and I've been catching myself lately. I realize I'm saying that a lot, like, oh, I'm gonna try to do this, and literally just gesture. I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, you're not gonna get it done, right? And then and immediately okay, I'm not gonna try. I'm gonna do it, and I notice there's a different resolution to me versus just, oh, I've been trying this and it's never worked. So, yeah,
beautiful. It leaves sort of the possibility of failure. It leaves this open-ended, like, well, I'll try, but I don't know if I can, and maybe I'm not. And sometimes we really say, I'll try, but we should really say, no, I'm not going to be there, versus, yeah, I'll try to be there, but I don't actually really have the intention of being there or showing up. So I think
like giving us the excuse already.
It's a pre-built justification. Right.
I actually do like the word try, because
awesome.
Simply because it shows that someone made an attempt at something, even if they didn't succeed.
Okay.
If you got some try behind you, we can work with try versus can't or not. I mean, if you're making an attempt at something, I have a lot more respect for that than saying I can't or not, in my opinion.
Yes. Beautiful. I love it. I think that's absolutely right. And I think this is the being aware of. If you've shifted from I can't to I'll try, that's beautiful. If you're using try as a justification or an excuse to not really put effort into this thing because you're not really sure there, then that's, a different space. And this is where these are words to be aware of. Should you be like, yeah, I'm going to try to eat better, try to exercise, try to, whatever it is in your life, but not really have any sort of plan behind it or really putting effort into it, then I'd say, maybe there's a different way to approach this. But if you're, oh man, I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't speak, or whatever it is, like, just try, right? There's also an element of playfulness to it, and that, failure is okay. Like, oh, sure, I'll get up and I'll sing the karaoke thing and I'll make a complete fool out of myself, but at least I tried and I had fun. Like, there's an element of playfulness and an attempt, which is good there. Cool.
It always makes me wonder if I'm using it as a wiggle word, right? I like the wiggle word where if you're saying try, if I'm saying that to somebody, I try to say, well, am I going to do it or not? There is a place for try, like, oh, I think I can fit it in between these two meetings. I'm going to try. That I would use, and I would let myself off the hook for, because I don't know if these meetings are going to go long. But when I'm saying I'll try, when I really mean I ain't doing that, That's what I really,
Right.
I try never to do that, right? So if I catch myself using it as a wiggle word so that I don't have to tell somebody no, then I stop and I just tell them no.
Right. There's a level of honesty and integrity behind it that's important, I'm hearing.
Right.
All right.
I
let's
use
jump into
I
next
use the
category.
phrase "let's see what happens" instead of try.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fair too. All right, let's go to the next slide, Paul. Okay. So similar, speaking to where you are versus where you're going, and not holding your future to your present. Let's go to the next. The first two categories to me are similar in here. I'll talk about current versus future first. So I see this a lot of people, sicknesses or illnesses. It's like, I have this thing versus I'm healing this thing. I'm recovering from this thing versus I am, or I have. And I think that's, or I'm not a good musician or guitar player, whatever it is, versus I'm studying and I'm moving towards it. So it's looking towards the future that you want. The self-deprecating language, I see in here a lot, people speaking poorly about themselves. And I would say that yourself, others, and the world at large is listening. Words are powerful. Speak to what you are moving towards, not the obstacles that are on your path. And the last one on this page is sorry. And some individuals, this is a really powerful thing, and some is not. Notice when and how often you use the word sorry. If you're like, oh sorry, I bumped into you on the hallway, or sorry when you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane because you're taking up too much space. And I see sometimes it's a reflection of you feel that you don't have the right to take up space in the world. And why, when you're walking down a hallway, should you apologize for being in someone else's way, like they have the right to be there and you're just simply something in their way? And sometimes this one really resonates strongly with people, and other ones, this one's won't. I would say if this is a word that you see yourself using a lot in your language, to stop, to realize that you have the right to the leg room on the airplane just as much as the person that's next to you, and reserve sorry for actual meaningful apologies. Okay, let's go to the next one. Radical ownership. This one is about completely taking responsibility for your life. And we'll go to the next slide and see what the words are. Anybody use these ones? Sure, nobody ever, right?
I actually have a little note right here, guys. And I've noticed, like, I'm not too aware of, sometimes you're right, we say things out of habit. We don't even really mean, like, we use words, right? Like, but this one taught me recently, and I'm practicing, I even put a little post-it there, that I was catching myself saying a lot, I have to. Like, I have to do this, I have to. In the moment, and it was putting me like in a negative, like, right? Like, oh my gosh. And when I realized if I say I want to, it puts me in a different state of mind, like, oh, I want to go do this. It's work related, it's still the same thing, but I catch myself more joyful in front of the computer just by switching those two words. So I started applying it to even my granddaughter. I have to spend time with her. Do I have to? No, I want to. Okay, don't make it an obligation. It's a, so it's amazing how one little word changed my whole, it changes the way I see whatever it's at hand.
Right. That's the beautiful example. Thank you. And we look, when we have to, there's immediate resistance. Like, oh, I have to do this thing, versus like, actually, do I have to spend time with my granddaughter? No, I don't. I truly don't. And when you really, truly own that and know that you have a choice, and you give yourself that choice to say no if you don't feel well, if you say no because you just don't want to that day, whatever it happens to be. But when you remove that choice from yourself, that like, I don't have that choice, like I have to, then it starts to become this obligation, and it takes up more energy and room in your brain versus I don't have to, I truly don't. Like, do I want to be the kind of grandma that's there for my kid? Do I want to have an impact on their life? Yes, I do. Okay, well then I want to. Like, then it becomes this completely different thing. And I see this really powerfully on one particular athlete that I was working at. It was a woman that was training for an Ironman race, and she showed up like 2 weeks before the race and was just exhausted and wiped out, and like showed up and was like spent 5 minutes saying how tired she was and how much she had to go on, and she wasn't able to train this day, and like just all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, okay, it sounds like the best thing to do is like turn off the lights, get out of mat, and let you take a nap for the next hour instead of training for this race. And she looked at me just like shocked, and I literally turned out the lights and pulled it up. She's like, what? It's like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm your trainer here. And that I gave her absolute permission to lay down and rest. When she really got that I really meant it, she really had a choice. She stopped. She went internally. She really thought about what she wanted to do in this moment. She's like, you know what? I am really tired, but that race is in 2 weeks, and that means a lot to me. And I'm here to train. Let's train. And then attacked it with such a power and vigor that was not there before, when she had felt this oppressive power making her do this thing. And so the need to, or have to and need to are kind of in the same category to me, maybe a little bit different. But when you truly release it and say, no, nobody is responsible for life telling me what to do in my life except for me. Only me. I get 1,000% the choice to make what I want to do in life. Then look at it from that perspective, and you can come at it with more power. You know, oh, I have to go into work tomorrow. No, you don't. Oh, you value the team that you're working with. You don't want to let them behind. You let them down. All that. Oh, it sounds like you want to go into work, not that you have to go into work. Need to, very similar, but I think there's even deeper. It's not like have to, like, so like have to is almost like someone's telling me that I have to. Like, need to is even this little deeper, like I will die if I don't. Like, I need to do this. And I would say on that one, even zoom out further, like, really? Like, do you really need to do this? Do you really need to eat healthy or not eat healthy or whatever it happens to be? No, probably not. You can choose to live however you want. Actually, it's all false, because everything's going to kill us and we're all going to die. So there's nothing that you need to do in any of this, right? So what do you want to do? The last one, should, to me is the worst. It's worse than all of them, because it's almost like this, I really should do that thing, but I'm not going to, but I'll make sure I feel really guilty about not doing it. Right? It's like, it's the worst of all of them. Like, do the thing or don't do the thing and enjoy the hell out of it, or not, or do it, right? Like, the should is the worst. And I think the should is probably what I hear the most. Oh, I should do this, I should eat better, I should meditate more, I should work harder, I should spend more time with my family, I should spend more time with myself, I should do more things for fun. It's like, oh my goodness, how many things in the world should we be doing? Try instead, choose to, get to, would like to. These words imply you don't have a choice, that you are a slave to some force outside of yourself. You always have a choice. Avoid using language that takes away your power and makes you a victim to outside forces. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, emotions and how to talk about emotions. And I think the deeper message in this one is going to be owning your own emotions. Okay, let's go into the words. I think the overall category on this one is shaming, blaming, and projecting intent on others. These are some examples down below. You know, you made me, it's all about the other person. I can't believe you're so disrespectful or unkind or whatever it happens to be, or you are, or you don't. It's about blaming other people for how we feel. And it's biologically impossible to make another human being feel an emotion. It's our interpretation of their actions that creates the emotion. By speaking for yourself and how another's actions make you feel, you take responsibility for your own emotions instead of putting the blame on another. That made me really angry. Oh, you really did this, when you showed up late, and it was like so rude and disrespectful that you showed up late. No, that's my interpretation of it. Like I'm interpreting not being here on time as being a disrespect to me, but maybe it has nothing to do with me. I'm interpreting someone leaving dishes on the counter as rude and disrespectful, and it just really ticks me off, or whatever it is, right? You're interpreting that it's just a plate on a counter, and maybe there's a lot of history in there because you've asked them to, and that's where this interpretation is coming from, because you asked them not to do this thing and they did this thing, so then we're interpreting it as it's like this attack on us, when maybe it was simply the person's forgetfulness. And it has nothing to do with us, but we are projecting intent onto them. And so the try instead is when we communicate, is how to communicate others. And so I'm not saying that others' actions don't impact us. They do, clearly, obviously. But owning that, it's owning our feelings of it is important. So the try instead here is I feel hurt, unloved, disrespected, uncared for when you do whatever the thing is that makes me angry or irritated or feel like you don't care about me or let down, because I value people that show up on time, people that keep their word. A clean space is important to me, and so I value these things. And so when we can communicate in sort of those terms about, it's not necessarily you, like it's me, but these things that you're doing make me feel this way, and then we can have a better conversation, a better dialogue about how to navigate interactions with people and each other without projecting blame or intent on the other person. We can own that. Yep, that just may be the way you do things. That just may be you in your life, and that's fine. And I'm not projecting anything on you. I'm owning it's me. And I'm also at the same time putting this boundary of, and I am not okay with people that do this or that, or we just won't be able to interact or keep that space. And so there's a way to own the emotions and keep the boundary at the same space. Make sense? Thoughts, questions on that one?
One thing I've noticed with this, and I've been much better at this in the last year, but it's never what you assume when you actually start talking to somebody about attacking you or acting in a certain way that you think is all about you. It's never what you think it is. When you start communicating with them in a kind way, you find out it's something completely different. And it's incredible if you can be in that and let them know how you're feeling, but also ask them, what, are you trying to do this thing I think you're trying to do to me? Oh, no, not at all. I'd say that's 100% of the time. Is there what you're imagining they're doing to you or trying to do to you is not at all where they're coming from.
Right. Yeah, I think there's this real quick, direct, one-to-one, this thing that they're doing, I'm feeling, and it feels like they're doing it to me when they're just being them, and I just happen to be in their proximity. Well,
the important thing on that keeps me centered on it is, hey, it's usually somebody saying you're making me feel this way, right? And I'm like, well, I can't make you feel anyway, but tell me what are we working on here, right? What's going on?
Right.
And I think that's an important piece that helps me not take it personally like I used to. I used to take it personally, clam up, walk away, and just assume a lot of things. I don't do that anymore. I walk towards them and figure it out and work through it with them. And if it is my fault, hey, what's going on? Let me hear, right? But I no longer assume that it's my fault. Back to that childhood thing of assuming that you're causing everything, right?
Right.
Flipping that on its head is very powerful. This is great stuff.
Yeah, I see. This goes much deeper than language, but I'm seeing like someone in a park and a wet dog walks up next to them and shakes off, and it gets all like the water all over them, right? And they're like instantly like angry at the dog, and like the dog did it on purpose, and it just came up, and it's just like, or it's just a dog being a dog shaking off water, but it feels so much like the dog did it to me. And, we're projecting all these feelings and that sort of stuff in there. It's like, you just happen to be in the blast zone and had nothing to do with you, right? And when we can disconnect that, we're able to do exactly what you did. You talked about and discussed, like move through it without the anger and hostility towards it, with curiosity and openness to navigate this better.
The curiosity and openness is great. It solves math, because even if they were mad at you, a lot of times when they realize that you care and you want to talk about it, it diffuses the whole thing, right?
Right. As opposed to you this and that, and as soon as someone attacks you, what does the other person do? Well, but, and goes the defense, and then it's like this attack and defense, as opposed to just a conversation about what's going on and what I feel and what you feel and how we could work together better. Another important subject when you're getting into this, and don't do it on emails or texts. It's nothing like a face-to-face is best, Zoom or Teams is next best, and then phone call is third best. But if you think somebody's mad at you and they're screaming at you in text or email, get off the text and email and get on the phone. Right. You'll never resolve it without at least hearing a person's tone of voice. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. We'll move to the next slide. Say what you mean. Be precise. Avoid exaggerating the truth. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. I think the first two, always and never, are almost always never true, right? Very, very rarely is something always or never. When we use them, it becomes this like inflammatory attack. And I think I've got a thing about confusion. Is it cause confusion of like, oh, you're always, whatever it happens to be for you. You're like, always? Well, what do you mean? But just the other day, and like then pretty soon this conflict starts happening. And being more precise about it, like sometimes this happens, or part of the time, or the times when you do this, this is the way it impacts me and feel, or percentages. I think it sounds totally stupid and ridiculous, but I think it's important. It's like, how often are we talking? Is this 10% of the time that I'm this way, that you want to make these changes? Or is this 90% of the time? Like, give me a barometer, like how big this thing is. And a lot of times it's probably 10% of the time. But we're like, hey, you always this, and because it feels in that moment always, because sometimes we get stuck in the moment, and the way that I feel now is the way that I think I'm always going to feel, and it feels so powerful. But then we get some distance from it, and then we realize, oh, actually, I was just really in the moment of that in there. So being precise with your language, I think, is important in there. And I put expletives in there, and I think we got a great quote, and I'll read our quote here. Don't use words too big for the subject. Don't say infinitely when you mean very. Otherwise, you'll have no word left when you want to talk about something that's really infinite. And I think the kind of the expletives part in there is that as well. If everything is a cuss word, a swear word next to it, and I cuss plenty, I'm trying to actually not to here, and I don't care if anybody does or doesn't. But when everything is followed with that, and everything is a 10, then nothing is a 10. It starts to become just like static and monotone and gets blocked off. And if everything is always and never, then you just start tuning the person out. You don't even kind of hear them anymore because it becomes so loud in there. So this is a bit about saying what you really mean. Is it really all the time? Is it part of the time? And we'll move on to the next one. Okay, minimizing languages. Speak plainly, speak the truth. Let's go to the next. I think these are all related, but let's take these one at a time. Let's start with the word just. Anybody got an example of how they use just in their life, or that uses it, or have thoughts on the word? I just ate one bite of your sandwich that you left in the fridge. It just had a quarter of the burrito that that you brought to work. It minimizes our action in literally trying to justify whatever it is. I'm just 2 days late on the project here. Oh, I'm just saying. Well, what are you saying? I think this is one. There are instances where I think it's perfectly reasonable. Hey, this week just focus on this project. That seems like it's narrowing down, it's honing down. Like we're saying just, and we're using the word just because we're saying, yes, there is all these things, but let's just move here. When we're saying just is like, oh, it's just this, or it's just that, or, oh, can't you just pick this thing up? It'll just take you a few minutes. It's minimizing the time. It's minimizing the request. It's minimizing all those things as opposed to giving the credit. Like, yeah, would you be able to pick this up? It should take about 15 minutes, and I would really appreciate it if you could do this. That's way more powerful than, could you do this thing for me? And it'll just take a little bit. Like it's minimizing what it is in there. And I think a lot of times it's boundary crossing that we're excusing or justifying as well. If it's, I don't know, maybe in a relationship, we have something with anger or yelling or, spaces or boundaries or whatever. And like, well, I just did this. Well, did you cross the boundary or not? If you did, then you did, and own it. You're right. You said not to do this thing, and I did that thing, and I own that, and I'm sorry, or this is what I'll do. Versus, oh, come on, you're upset about that? Well, it was just okay, let's go to but.
But is the one that I had to work on. I had it placed in everywhere, and I was completely, you pointed out, I was completely disqualifying everything I said before the but I was really had that ingrained in my brain. So I'm still working on it. I still catch myself saying that, and I'm trying to completely remove it. I mean, you talk about programming your brain. I had but programmed in most of my sentences, and yeah, that's the word that I'm still working on.
Right, it's a tough one. I would the suggestion on here is I would replace but with and most of the time. I'm going to say maybe 90% of the time, something like that. And I think there is a fundamental truth that we want something to be one thing or another. And it's hard to hold two things true. Let's just say somebody has to be let go in a department. Well, we really value the work that you do here, but sorry, we're gonna have to let you go. Like it like discounts everything. And as soon as you hear that but, you're like, oh, it's coming, hold on. Like they didn't mean any of that stuff that they set up here. And this is what they're really trying to say to me. And I think is powerful and is difficult to wrap our head around. Can an experience both be awful and really sucked and be beautiful and powerful and good things came out of it? I see a lot when we're talking about like our family history or like maybe our parents, like, oh man, they did all this stuff and, they whipped me 3 times a day and all this, but, they really tried hard. Like they were really good parents. You're like, yeah.
Both could be true.
Yes, that's
exactly.
What I say.
And you're right. That fixes it all. And that duality of, I really like you and I hate to do this and I'm going to let you go for these reasons.
Right.
That works, right? But you drop but in there and you've got a mad person, right? When you put the and in there and you're clear and you explain it, then they're like, I get it. I understand. Right. They believe you. The but discounts anything you said before that. Right.
I think if all of the things and the words that we talk about here if any of them stick with you, I would say think about this one most deeply. I think this one is probably the most difficult and is so like there's this like movement inside of like, oh, like what do I feel about it? Do I love it? Do I hate it? Like, oh man, donuts are amazing, but they're gonna kill you. Like, well, which is it?
That's a subtle, important point is you're not just discounting it to that other person you're talking to. You're discounting it in your own brain. If you really examine it, when I was saying that, I was discounting that win, you know, the best thing we've done ever.
Yes.
I was discounting it in my own brain and my own conscience and everybody else's that I was talking to. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. 1,000 times. Oh, you know, you're such a great mom. Oh, I do all these things. I'll do these things. Oh, but you know, I screwed up that other day. What's the end result is I'm a terrible mom. It does all the 99 things I did that were great, but that one thing that I did, yep, there it is. It's proof I'm a terrible mom. As opposed to I did 99 things that were great this week, and I did one thing that didn't turn out the way I'd like it. To be able to hold those two things is to hold the imperfection of human beings, to hold the complexity of life. I mean, is life beautiful, and people are, you know, people, like, this is another great example, like, are people wonderful, beautiful thing, or is love everywhere, or is there no love? And are people wonderful, or people awful? Is the world safe? Is the world horrendous and filled with war? Or is it, and like, we want to pick one. We always like, yeah, so it really is, the people are loving and kind and you can trust them. That's right. Oh, thank goodness. I always knew it deep inside.
Well, and the answer to all those questions is always yes, right? So if you argue with somebody about, you know, is the world terrible or amazing? Yes, it is, right?
Yes.
And it's always yes, both are true, and they can be true together.
Right.
That's powerful. This whole subject of programming your mind is also the reason I quit you know, teasing people and making jokes and you know, giving people mean names. I did that at, I was about 30 when I was running the machine shop. It's just you're programming yourself, you're programming your mind, and you're programming them all at the same time. So it's no different than going into your computer and putting viruses in that code that keep coming up and causing you problems.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that one's not on here, but I think teasing would be a beautiful thing to talk about, right? Like, half the time people are teasing, they're actually speaking truth. And it's like the saying about comedians are the truth tellers of our country or in our society, right? They say the things, and the things are funny because the things are true. If they had no bearing on reality, it wouldn't be a joke. It wouldn't be funny. And so when we're saying something, like being really mindful of, like, is this whatever truth is in the teasing, is this the way that I should communicate this? Or is maybe this something that is actually the person's genuinely struggling with, and teasing them is going to be detrimental to them and not honoring or respectful of them?
Because normally it's something that people are picking out, right? You're short, you're tall, you're fat, you're skinny, your face is messed up, and then they're picking at that, and that. You definitely, and I was a leader when I realized that, woof, I'm losing good people because of this dumb stuff. And once in a while it's funny until it's not, right? Until that person's in the wrong mood for that teasing, and then you're going to lose them. And it's, you know, it's just, and I think it's mostly removed from LNH now, but you'll see it crop up in pockets, and it's always for the best intentions. People thinking they're building camaraderie and stuff until they lose their best friend because of it.
I think there's got to be a real trust and respect for it to be okay. And the last one is no. This isn't on here because you should never say the word no. This is talking about looking for points of agreement to affirm rather than points of disagreement. When you're working with others, you know, can you say yes? You're like, yes, I love this thing that you talked about here, and here's some things that maybe I don't agree with. And leading and starting with like points of agreement in there, I think is a powerful orientation to adopt. Where do we agree?
That's where you can get I feel like that's where you can get the word "but" though. Like, if you agree but disagree, yes, but what about this? So how do you go about
yes and what about this?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. What do you think about yes and? Whatever thought that came into your head at that point, would yes and change it?
Oh, I would say yes, and I don't like that idea, or
yeah, you could say yes. These ideas I think are really powerful. I really agree and resonate with these. And there's a few ideas over here that I don't agree with.
I
and if
understand.
we're, yeah,
Could we say something like, yes, I get it why you're thinking this way, or I understand where you're going with this. What about if you consider this as well? Or would that be like you're not shutting them down, but you're still, would that work?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a similar, concept in there. You're like, yes, these things, and here's some other things that I'd still like to address, or some other things that have been left unaddressed in there. Okay, let's go to the next one.
It's really powerful when you get into brainstorming and working a problem, and there's a improv uses this. You never say no because it kills the improvisation, right? The same thing happens when I'm creating and I'm in flow and I'm working with somebody on something. I don't want anybody in the room that says no. I want the yes, and let's change this, let's add this, let's twist this, because it keeps the momentum and the flow going and it energizes people. You didn't just cut their legs out from under them and embarrass them and make them go quiet. You were additive to the flow and the solutions. It works. If you notice in a room when somebody's like, nope, just killed it. Your creativity is gone. You're just command, and everybody's sad and they're bummed out, and they're going to do the work because you're the boss and you told them to, but they're not going to do it willingly. They're not going to do it very well.
Right.
But you know what, guys, I've gone through this every now and then. I guess you have to know your audience, right? Every now and then you just got to be firm and say no, because if you say yes, and they never hear that, and they just assume that the yes part is all agreement with what they said. Sure. Right? I mean, I know that's rare, but every now and then you just have to know your audience and who to say no, period.
You're right. You're right. There's things I'll say no to. If somebody's breaking our core values or lying or cheating or doing something illegal, it's a no. It's a hard no, right? So you're exactly right, Claudia.
Oh, the last thing on here, speaking the truth. I think this one's really powerful, and this one's even more powerful in the internal. It's not even about the external. It's really difficult because first you have to know what the truth is. Do you like this thing or do you not like this thing? What do you feel about it? And then you have to come to an agreement. And usually there's we aren't in full alignment from head to toe with something. And so first we have to figure out what do I really feel on this? What is it I really think about this? What is really the truth? And then speaking that and only that, I think is a really powerful. And when you speak something, then asking is that true? Do I really feel that? Do I really mean that? Is that what I really, have deep inside?
I think that's a really important one for LNH. I think it highlights our core values, and you'll never get in trouble for speaking the truth, even if your leader doesn't like it. And I'm sure that people can think of examples of that. The truth will set you free, and we can literally deal with anything if you're speaking the truth. There's nothing that you could do that's worse than lying. So I think this is an important one for LNH and our core values. And I think that's what we've gathered up as a lot of people that they're going to tell you the truth. You might not like it, but they're going to tell you the truth all the time.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, ownership and praise, taking responsibility for yourself and nothing else. Let's go to the next. So we'll take these ones one at a time, or maybe the top two. I versus we. Neither of these are right and wrong, or I'm saying you should always use I and never we, or never we and always I, or any of that. I'm saying, do you really mean what you say? And I think in teams and leaderships of the leader standing up and saying, I did this and I did that and I did, and the 1,500 people below I'm thinking like, really, you did that all by yourself, did you? Right. I think that's, the time of, to say we, and the reverse might be like, yeah, we really screwed this up. We were like, are you sure this was we or was that you? Like, just understanding, do you really mean what you say, and having the impact, is this the appropriate thing? So I would, raising awareness around these and examining, are you giving credit appropriately in using I versus we? The second one is more, well, a lot of times I'm doing it right now because I kind of am, because that's my role of speaking for people in general. But speaking for people in general, really what we're talking about is ourselves, right? If you hear someone say, oh, people, really get uncomfortable around this or whatever, and it's like, no, I don't. Are you talking about you? Like, or we, some of those things, or, this category of people. And really what you're saying is, either you yourself or the 3 people that you interact in your life feel this way, but are you really sure all human beings across the world feel and act this way? So this one a little bit more is about like being precise and speaking to you, if you're talking about you or the individuals that you're talking about, and not overgeneralizing our experience onto the world or onto a whole category of people that it doesn't necessarily belong to. The second one there might need a little bit more conversation. So I'm going to pride, or saying that you are proud of somebody, and maybe even praise in general. And we'll kind of leave those separate for a moment. But what would it mean if someone said they are proud of you or not proud of you? And I'm going to put an asterisk of caution by this one, is why this one is up here. Not that it's never appropriate, but what is it that we are really saying when maybe a parent says how proud they are of their kids' accomplishments? And what effect does it have on the person? If I said how proud of you I was that you tied your shoes this morning, or whatever it is, it's like, well, are you expecting that would be difficult? And so then you're saying that I accomplished that. And what does that have to do with you? Like I, well, if I teach you something and then I say, oh, I'm so proud that you did this thing, like I'm taking some of that accomplishment, like it wasn't you. Like it, and making this thing that you did about me. And the accomplishment that you said, it's not like, man, you did this and that's awesome, but it's like, you did this and the credit belongs right here. Like I'm taking it for. And it also has this layer of like approval. Like you need my approval in this thing. Like you played this sport and did this thing to make this other person proud, or did you do it because you wanted to do it and you loved it? And it's like, and if you're doing it to get somebody else's approval, then is that the motivation that, one, we want to do things for ourselves? And maybe if we're talking about kids or employees or things like that, like they're doing it for your approval. And there's a certain schooling system of the Montessori method where like they actually never praise a child. Like they never even tell them like, good job, like here you go, you get a cookie, you did good. Because it's teaching them to look to other people for their own value. You did good because I said you did good. And it doesn't matter, maybe it should matter more what do you think? Are you happy about what you did? Are you proud about what you did? What is important to you versus making it about me? Your actions are about me and my pride, my value. So your value lies in how well you can please me, how well you live according to my rules, according to my guidelines. And if you operate well according to those guidelines, then I'm proud of you and your accomplishments become part of me, as opposed to a teacher teaching a lesson that then they take and own themselves. And they choose to do it or choose not to do it purely because of what they believe. And a lot of the work that they do or end up undoing is so much of our own value is tied up in pleasing others. We could go back 3 slides to have to, need to, should. There we go. I have to get approval, to get love, to get respect. It's looking for my value is externally focused, as opposed to what do I think about how I did? Am I proud of what I am or am not? So is it ever appropriate to say proud or give praise? No, maybe, but I think being very aware of the dynamics that happen as a result of this language, praise, approval, pride dance is really powerful and worth investigating into our own lives. So what do I really mean when I say I'm proud of something or not? Thoughts on that one? Anybody vehemently disagree or not? Or what's your thoughts?
It's a huge one because I'm confused about it. I'm like, oh snap, you're right. But I do it all the time.
Right.
You know, I mean, how do
Yeah,
I replace, for example, praising my kids away from saying what you're saying, or I approve of what you're doing. So I'm proud of you because I approve of what you're doing. If you weren't doing what I believe it's right, then I'm not proud. Like,
right. Your pride is contingent on them being a certain way. What if they sat around and did nothing? Would you love them the same, or would you be proud of them the same?
Yes. Oh snap.
Right.
What if we change the word to impressed? You're impressed that someone did this without you having to teach them, or they went that extra mile to learn something that taught or bettered everyone around them. You know, you could be proud of them for doing that, but would using the word impressed be better?
Yeah, I think it's speaking to more to a little bit more to how you are receiving it, and it's like it's speaking to the emotion that you are feeling. And so I think there's a little bit more of you are just owning that there. I think it still has the, well, would you not be not be impressed or approve of me if I didn't do this in there. So it still has a little bit of that sticky element, but I think it's probably one step removed or one step closer to allowing the other person to own their life, their experience, their accomplishments in there. Yeah. And even in saying proud or impressed, it's not a never to me. Like, is there points in time where you would want to know that if your parents are proud of you or not? It's hard. Like I've worked in the kind of the Montessori school stuff. Like you want to give the kids praise. Like it feels so wrong. They're like, I made this thing. Look at this thing. And like actually the guidance and teaching is just to remain neutral. Like, oh, you really seem excited about this thing. Tell me about it. What do you think about it? What do you like about it? And it's always reflecting back to them. Like, right? It's like they're like, oh, I love that. I did this and I think this is really cool about it, but this part over here didn't come in. And it's like reflecting back towards them so they own it and they are thinking about what they think about it, as opposed to teacher, tell me what you think about this. Oh, I think this shape is good and that thing is bad. Oh, okay, thank you. I'll go back and I'll make it more the way you like it. So, impressed would still have some of those elements, whether I'm impressed or I'm not impressed. And are those elements appropriate sometimes in a workspace and you give somebody an assignment? Sure. Like, great. Yeah, you met the things that I asked for you. Thank you. Like, I appreciate that. And so this isn't a never, like it's never good to give somebody praise or speak of pride or any of that kind of stuff. It's just being very, very cautious with it about what sort of dynamics we are setting up when we are entering into this sort of dialogue.
So like with saying you're excited for them or you're happy for them for their situation because they did the work, they did something like that. Because I catch myself doing that with my kids, you know, saying, well, I'm happy for you because I know they worked hard, or
that sounds beautiful. You're speaking to, you know, it makes you excited to see them get excited. It makes you excited to be there.
I know they put the work in, so I'm excited that, you know, they're proud of the work they did. And
I hear you're reflecting back to them sort of the way that they feel, and you're celebrating with them. And I think that might be the appropriate stance, to like celebrate with the person in their excitement.
I think if it's true and genuine, right? So if you feel that, you're like, wow, man, you are amazing at that. And it's true that they really are. It's remarkable. And you're remarking on it. And then maybe you're adding in how that impacts you. You know, I love the way you're doing this because, man, this place is so much better because of you. If that's true, I think where we get into a trap is if, and there's some of that fake it till you make it, you know, when people are trying to reprogram their mind that they're trying to be gracious. I think gracious might be a little different category. The please, the thank you, you know, all of those things. I think that's in a different bucket. And I also think, Alex, on the measuring the accomplishments of the LTAs and things like that, I think that's marking an accomplishment, right? A time. I think that's good. But I think we'd never want to be, personally or as a company, giving out the gold star to everybody, no matter what you did. I think then none of it means anything, right? And I think the other thing I find is the people that are amazing at things that are remarkable that I'm drawn to tell them, they don't realize how amazing and remarkable they are. It's one of their natural abilities, that they're just a rock star at it. And they're like, you mean everybody's great at that? No, they're not. And so normally people are surprised when you point out their unique ability, their superpower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. One more thing then. So with that, do you think you could use that to motivate them to want to do more? Like, let's say you acknowledge that, hey, I'm really impressed that you went the extra mile on that. Do you think that could be utilized as a motivator to get them to want to go an extra couple miles on something else, or continue to better themselves? Or
yeah, you know, and speaking in terms of, you know, motivation, does it motivate people? Are people motivated to make other people proud, get other people's approval? Yeah, like absolutely. And all those things work. And in certain contexts, it may be the appropriate thing, because your role may be to train somebody to do something in a certain way. So you giving them verbal feedback that's, you know, positive when they're moving in the direction that you want to move, that's effective. Yes, absolutely. The deeper level that I would, in the work context, that may be 1,000% the right thing to do, because that is the thing that you're there doing. On the deeper level is what I'm speaking of, is like my internal value and worth. Like, why do I do the things that I do in life? You know, what do we want to raise kids to do? Do we want to raise kids to always be looking externally for approval, or do we want them to have a value and worth that they feel intrinsically? Do we want them to feel our love and approval is based on their behavior and checking a certain amount of boxes, or not checking those boxes? Do they get that approval and pride from us? And is that the way that we want to train and condition, you know, other people to do in our interactions, you know? Or do we want them to have a internal value system that they are checking in first and foremost with what they think about it, and then maybe later on externally, is it also appropriate for the group or not? And I bring this in because I see a lot of like resilience. And that's one of the core things I've trained for the last 20 years. Of a lot of people have sought me out to train them to do really difficult things, train military stuff or different events and things like that. And like resilience is all at the core of it. And the core of resilience is your own self-worth and value. And when you put that externally, when I do this, if I achieve this, if I do that, then, you know, I have value, I have worth, then you are inherently fragile. If your self-worth is connected to anything outside of your own self, then you can be broken. When you're 100% of your value and broken, you know, your value and worth is internally, then nothing can touch you, nothing can impact you in a way that is detrimental to you. And we'll talk more about that kind of in some future things about resilience and sort of what's at the heart of resilience. But that'll be our opening for that conversation. And I think a lot of times we are training fragility into our kids and into our relationships by tying their worth, their love, their everything else into these external accomplishments. Oh, we have run out of time. Okay, well, good, because we are here at the end. I think language is a bit, as we kind of unpacked all these words, is like, man, we say these words and what do we mean? And I think a bit of mindfulness is finding the extraordinary within the ordinary. And it's a bit of sometimes like if everyone's done that, like say this one word 25 times, and the more you say it, then the more like, whoa, this is really weird. And I'm making these sounds with my tongue and doing these shapes and vibrations, and like you start to hear it and see it differently. And this journey of awareness, I think language is this beautiful place to start of like, wow, what do I say? What are the impacts that I have, like externally, internally on what I say, and becoming more mindful of your language and what you use. And then you start to hear yourself speak. So that's maybe my challenge for you for this month, is to start really paying attention to the words you speak. And then we transition from the words we speak to the thoughts that we hold and the words that we speak internally. And then we move into this like whole, Mike gave us a beautiful, like, how'd you call it? Head, heart, gut? Was that your?
Yep, head, heart, and gut.
Yeah, head, heart, and gut, and starting to check in with all of those different spaces within ourselves to come to that alignment. And Mike and I had a great conversation about like manifesting things, and whether you view that from some cosmic view or whether you just view it from, I got clear on what I want. I think it's the same thing in the end. Like this is our and, right? It's both. It's both a practical, tangible thing of getting really clear on you want, and it may absolutely be some cosmic, energetic vibration sort of stuff that happens when someone manifests that. But I think that starts with like getting clear on ourselves. And I think language is a great place to start because we can hear it. We can see it reflected in there. We can see it in our emails, all those sorts of things. Thank you for being here. I really enjoyed hanging out with everybody and talking with everyone. I look forward to it again next month. If you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. If you want to get together and work one-on-one, I would really love to help you dive into what are the patterns and themes and things in your life that we could work on to help optimize. And I want to say that there doesn't have to be anything wrong. You're like, well, I don't have like a problem. Like, it's right. We're not there to fix problems. We're there to, optimize, and how do we make life better? How do we make your life even more awesome? And how do we help you impact even more people around you in a way that both fills your cup and fills the cup of the other people around you? And I think, Alex, that's what you were talking a little bit about earlier. Like, how do I give from a place that isn't detrimental to me? But how do I give from a place, because I am so overflowing and abundant with this, I can't help but just give and spill it to everybody around me. Cool. If there's any last thoughts or questions, I'd love to have it. And if you have to take off, then thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you all next month.
Any thoughts or questions? Anything lingering?
Actually, and that last comment you made, Travis, I did do that first session, and genuinely, guys, I was so excited, made the online appointment, right? And that day I was busy and this and that. And then I thought, I don't need it. I mean, whatever issues I have, I know what I'm supposed to do to fix them. Yep. And then I thought, well, it's already the last day. How am I going to cancel at the last minute? So that's the only reason I did the first session, because I felt guilty. but I was so surprised the hour went like this, and Travis was so good at just asking the right questions, where I was like, oh snap. So it was very helpful when I didn't think I needed it, you know? So
I was the same way. I didn't think I would get much out of it, but I get so much out of it that I'm on a continuous loop now. And it's better every time. It's incredible.
That's great.
I'm
really glad to hear.
Anybody else? Anything out there? Thank you, Travis. That was amazing. A good mic drop there at the end. It just built up and keep it going. I'll see you next month.